Warning: the following video contains minor spoilers for the film Nimona by Netflix and Annapurna Pictures. This video also touches on issues of mental health. If you need help with your mental health, there is a national helpline you can call, link in the description below. Hello YouTube and welcome to Sci Prime Productions, a new YouTube channel, so bear with me as I figure things out. So, Nimona. Listen, I'm going to step out of the detached Pathfinder reviewer space here for a second and let you know that I know this is probably going to be a controversial video. Not because of anything I'm doing, but because some might find the content of Nimona unpalatable. And if that's the case, you are free not to like the film. Personally, I love it. I love the themes, the action, the humor, all of it. I think it's great. You are free to disagree. I just ask that you leave all the quarreling out of the comment section of my video. If you dislike the film, I'm sure there are thousands of videos on YouTube where you can go and air your grievances. This is a video about a build from the movie. If you dislike the mechanics of the build, I invite you to politely tell me in the comments below. Otherwise, I invite you to look elsewhere. I guess I'm just asking for people not to start a flame war here. There are other spaces on the internet for that. I'm just building a Pathfinder character based on a movie that I really like, and let's leave it at that, okay? So, if you haven't guessed by now, this is a character build for Ballister Boldheart, one of the two protagonists of the movie Nimona. If you somehow haven't heard of Nimona, it was a webcomic turned graphic novel. That novel was then adapted into a CGI animated movie that miraculously got released after being relegated to development limbo for a time. I'm going to be focusing on the film adaptation of Ballister as I don't have a copy of the graphic novel right now. Nimona is set in a fictional city named... Hold on, let me check the name of the city on the Nimona wiki really quick. The Kingdom. Well, despite the rather lackluster name, this is actually a pretty inventive setting as it is futuristic medieval. That is to say they have knights in plate mail riding hoverbikes and wielding laser crossbows? Actually, those crossbows shoot glowing blue crossbow bolts, whatever. They have flying cars, energy shields, plasma cannons, and knights and swords. The story of Nimona kicks off with Ballister Boldheart about to be knighted as a newly minted warrior of the kingdom after going through rigorous training, ready to defend the kingdom against any possible monsters that might want to attack from outside the kingdom's walls. Then something goes wrong and he becomes a wanted criminal from within the kingdom. That's all you really need to know about the movie going in. So in order to build a character for Ballister Boldheart, we need to focus on the feats he accomplishes in the film. First off, a major plot point in the film is that Ballister was born as a, quote, street kid, unquote, and not part of a noble family. This is important because in the kingdom, only those of a royal bloodline can become knights. That is until the queen changes the rules. Ballister then trains for the rest of his childhood and into his adult life to become the first non-royal bloodline knight. He ends up working harder and having more talent than anyone in his graduating class? I don't know how the knighting system works in the kingdom, but it's stated that he's the best of the new knights, and this is borne out in one fight scene where Ballister and his self-appointed sidekick, the eponymous Nimona, are able to take on an entire squad of knights without a scratch. Another thing of note, at one point in the movie, Ballister gets his right arm chopped off. Luckily for him, he's a lefty, but even more luckily, he's able to build a replacement arm in a dingy, disused tower with what are presumably salvaged tools. Man, this guy is really smart and a fantastic inventor on top of being a grade A knight. The last thing to know about Ballister is that he's actually somewhat charismatic. Now this is getting into heavy spoilers, but at one point in the film he's able to talk down someone who's in a really bad place mentally, and to me that speaks volumes not only about his character, but also his diplomatic and persuasive skills. Being able to connect with someone in that situation and say the right things takes a lot of skill and talent. Now, normally when someone makes a character in Pathfinder, they have to go through the ABCs of character creation, and we'll get there. But before we get to that, I think we should talk about Ballister's class. Really, there are two classes that came to mind for Ballister, either Fighter for being the best new knight of his generation, or Inventor for his technical expertise in cobbling together a prosthetic arm, computer, and internet connection while in a dingy tower and on the run. In the end, I decided on fighter, as you can make a fighter who's really good at fighting and decent at inventing, but going the other way around doesn't really work, as there's no real way to increase the accuracy of an inventor too much. So with that sorted out, like I said, the way to make a character in Pathfinder 2e is to do the ABCs of character creation, and A stands for ancestry. Ballister's ancestry is actually pretty easy to focus on. He's human. There's really no arguing about that. As a human, he gains a +1 to 2 of his ability scores, and I'm going to choose Strength and Constitution. For his heritage, I chose Skilled Human, which nets him training in one skill that automatically upgrades to Expert at level 5, and I'm going to take the Crafting skill, which is going to allow him to make that prosthetic arm we see in the film. As for his ancestry feat, I'm going to go with General Training so he can pick up the Fleet feat, which increases his speed. This counteracts the speed penalty for his full plate mail that he wears, as he's pretty agile in it. Also note that as a human, he starts off with a one-time bonus of 8 extra hit points. Moving on, B stands for background, and we have a few options here. He did train for his entire childhood, so Martial Disciple is an option. He's also tasked with defending the kingdom, so Guard could also work. But I'm going to take the background Street Urchin, as that is actually a major part of his identity. This nets him the Thievery skill, which we never see him do, but he would presumably use it to break into the places that we see him break into in the movie. He also gets the Lore skill for his hometown, which would be Kingdom Lore. He also gets the Pickpocket feat, which I don't think he ever does, but hey, no background fits every character perfectly. He also gets a bonus to either Dexterity or Constitution. We're going to choose Constitution, and a free ability score boost, which we're going to give up to Strength, obviously. Alright, C stands for class, and like I said, we're going to do Fighter. This gets him a bonus to Strength or Dexterity. We're going to pump Strength. Finally, he gets 4 free ability score boosts. I'm going to boost Strength, Constitution, Intelligence, and Charisma. Now, I'm going to circle back to Fighter just for a second. As a fighter, he gets either the Athletics or Acrobatics skill trained. I'm going to choose Athletics. He also gets 4 additional skills trained, 3 + 1 for his high intelligence. I'm going to go with Diplomacy, Society, and Stealth. Diplomacy for his ability to talk someone down, like I mentioned earlier, and Society and Stealth for his ability to sneak around and navigate the kingdom while on the run. I'm going to also add in the Medicine skill, because he technically does medicine at one point in the movie, though he's not particularly good at it. He starts off with a fighter feat. I'm going to choose Sudden Charge, as he seems like a pretty mobile fighter. Lastly, he gets all the standard fighter things like training in all armors, reactive strike. I'll put them all up on screen right now. Moving on to level 2, in the movie we see him use his prosthetic arm to block attacks. I looked and looked for a way to represent that in the game, and the best I could come up with was giving him the Dueling Parry feat. This means that if his prosthetic hand is free, he can spend an action to give himself a +2 to AC, as if he had raised a shield. He also gets the Specialty Crafting skill feat. I chose Prosthetics to make him better at crafting, well, prosthetics. At level 3, he picks up the Bravery class feature automatically, and I increased his Athletics to Expert. He also gets a general feat, which I used to pick up the skill feat Eyes of the City, which lets him track down people in urban environments using diplomacy or society, and we actually do see him do that in the film. At level 4, he gets another class feat, and I chose Dual-Handed Assault. If you don't know what this feat is, it's pretty nice, and I was only recently made aware of it. It lets you, for one action, put your free hand on a weapon, attack with it, then take your hand off the weapon. The best part is it doesn't mess with his dueling parry feat, so it's pretty great for Ballister, as, spoiler alert, he's going to be using a bastard sword, so that lets his attacks go from D8s to D12s for one attack a round. He also gets another skill feat. I chose Improvised Tool to represent him cobbling together a workstation in that abandoned tower he operates out of. At level 5, he gets his 4 ability score boosts. I'm going to boost up his strength, which only goes up a half point due to how ability score boosts work. I'm also going to increase his constitution, intelligence, and charisma. Because his intelligence goes up, he also gets trained in a new skill. I'm going to choose intimidation, as he does intimidate once or twice in the film. He gets an ancestry feat, and I'm going to choose Clever Improviser, which gets him the ability to have a small boost to all of his skills that he's not already trained or better in. Finally, as a level 5 fighter, he gets mastery in one group of weapons, which is obviously going to be sword for him. At level 6, Ballister gets another class feat, and I'm going to use that to pick up the martial artist dedication. We see a couple of times in the movie Ballister manages to headbutt a fully armored knight into unconsciousness, and Ballister is barely even fazed by this. This dedication will help him do that. Martial artist dedication increases his training in unarmed attacks to Ballister's highest level of weapon training, Master, because of his sword mastery last level. He also can choose to do lethal or non-lethal damage with his unarmed attacks, which now do D6s instead of D4s. Also at level 6, he picks up the Inventor skill feat for his technical expertise. And that's where I'm going to stop. In my estimation, Ballister is around level 6 in the film. He's clearly better than the average knight and highly skilled, but he's not doing ridiculous, crazy level 20 things. I feel like I've covered most of the abilities we see him do in the movies, and if you want to continue leveling him up after this, you can do so as you like. One last thing of note is Ballister's gear. I think he uses a bastard sword as far as I can tell and wears full plate armor. He also obviously has a prosthetic arm that he made himself. Lastly, since humans don't seem to have access to magic in Nimona, I'd suggest just using the automatic bonus progression rules from the Advanced Player's Guide. This just allows his weapons and armor to be treated as the correct level of magic item for Ballister's character level. And that's it. That's my take on Ballister Boldheart. I'd love to hear your thoughts or hear your critiques or just talk it out with you in the comments below. If you like this channel and want to see it grow, please like, subscribe, and comment. That tells YouTube and me that you would like to see more of this kind of content. Until then, thanks, good luck, and happy gaming.